I don't believe a woman needs to start a business in order to find freedom or take back control of her life. But I do understand why a lot of women choose that path. What if I gave you a permission slip that said, your job is to feel good? And what if I told you that the better you feel, the bigger impact you can make in the world? And in fact, that is the magical parenting strategy that we've all been searching for. Hey, I'm Heather Chauvin, wife, mother of 3 boys, former social worker, breadwinner, recovering hustler, and stage 4 cancer survivor. Beyond all of these titles and labels, I'm a human being just like you, attempting to navigate it all while feeling good. My goal on this show is to show you that you can live an energized, sustainable life both at home and at work. My attempt is to keep it real with stories, interviews, and random thoughts. This is not a business or career podcast, and it's not a parenting podcast. It's both and so much more. You will laugh, you will cry, and you may even get a little frustrated with the truth you've been hiding from yourself. I believe all human behavior is a language, whether it's through your children, your health, or your relationships. And when you learn to listen instead of react, we begin to understand what it truly means to feel alive and in control. It's time to ditch self-sacrifice and step into your brave zone. All right, ladies, I am back. And as you've noticed, we have a new intro and some new music because we're kind of starting off a new season. September is the new January, and in 2020, anything goes. So my goal is to still put out the weekly interview. We may change it up to Tuesdays, and you know me, I always have a plan, and then I change up my plan. So yeah, my intention is to put out a weekly interview on Tuesdays, and to also have some additional bonus content that will be, solo shows with me as well on the podcast. We also have the new app feature that you can text me anytime if you want to give me feedback, or if you're have an aha moment from the podcast, you can text that to 313-710-5199. And you could just start with saying hello or, hey, I listened to this podcast. It was a game changer. Thank you so much. So I would love to hear that. So again, it's 313-710-5199. I'm a real human, so I would love to hear from you. All right. So I don't believe that we all need to start a business. But what I do see a lot of women doing is thinking that starting a business is going to give them freedom. And although I do agree with that, maybe you can make money on your own terms. You can, put a message out there in the world on your own terms. You can create what you want. What I often find is that women do not realize that all of their personal development shit that they've been avoiding working on will come to the surface. If you've ever heard me say parenting is personal development on steroids, running a business is also personal development on steroids. And that is why I'm really excited to kick off this new season, with Gina DeVee. She is the author of The Audacity to be Queen, The Unapologetic Art of Dreaming Big and Manifesting Your Most Fabulous Life. And I would say Gina is fabulous. We definitely have different styles. But what I love about this woman is she does not hold back in doing what she wants to do in the world, saying what she wants to say, and just being her most authentic self. So go check her out. You can check her out at divineliving.com. She is just a wealth of knowledge. She also has her podcast called Divine Living with Gina DeVee. So DeVee is DeVee. And in today's podcast episode, we're talking about all the things. We're talking about her journey. We're talking about her book and, just getting uncomfortable, feeling good. That is ultimately what I'm trying to teach you. Get uncomfortable, feeling good, because you deserve to feel good. And the better you feel, you are literally giving the person next to you permission to do the same. Now, whether they judge you for feeling good or not, or saying, I can't have that, I just think the world would be such a better place if we had more empowered women empowering women, right? And those women can be the little girls in your home. The women can be the little boys in your home. My point is, an empowered woman is apparently a culture shifter. And I don't know why in 2020 this is still radical to choose yourself. But that's what I'm here to take a stand for. So let's dive in. Hello, Gina. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Heather. Thanks for having me.
This is so amazing. I love, the internet is a love-hate relationship, but what I absolutely enjoy is the connections and relationships that you develop with people around the world. And it's interesting how sometimes we feel isolated and alone, and then we look out there and go, oh, I'm not alone. There are people out there, and I feel like you're one of my people.
Oh, such a great thing to hear. Thank you so much for that. I know the first time we connected, I felt the same way.
And it's always it's definitely nice to pre-connect with people when you're going to be interviewing them, because it just creates a deeper connection. And I received your book, The Audacity to Be Queen, The Unapologetic Art of Dreaming Big and Manifesting Your Most Fabulous Life.
Yep.
And I told you I've been, highlighting, and, it's almost like a compliment to the author. You're like, look at the disaster of a book that I've created. It's well loved.
Oh, I was so thrilled to hear that. When you're writing a book, talk about an isolating process. You're sitting there staring at that screen by yourself, and you're like, was this just genius, or is anyone going to care? It's such a warped sense of reality. So I'm glad it's landed well for you.
Yeah. And we had a short discussion about this when we originally connected, because this is your first book, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely different than, the online world or creating a coaching program. And every author that I've spoke to or I've listened to, they're like, it was awful. It was hell. And on the other side, people are like, but it's so beautiful and it's changed my life. And I just want to dive a little bit deeper into that, like some of that conversation, because I think being our big dreams in our life doesn't always, it's not a go with the flow thing. It's not like a wake up and it's just going to plop in your lap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, for me, writing a book was what my friend Catherine Woodward Thomas described. She's like, "Oh, you're writing a book?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, you're in the agony and ecstasy." And I was like, "What is it?" Because I was at the very beginning. I was like, "What is she talking about? This is fun." And then, a few months into it, I was like, "Oh." Normally there's been risks, there's been challenges, there's been like stretches at different junctures in my career whenever I was up leveling and trying new things that, were like not easy. But for me, definitely writing a book was the hardest thing I've ever done. I remember one point I would like wake up and it would be like, only 47 more days of hell. And I was like, Gina DeVee, you need to change your relationship with the writing process. And I used a number of the exercises that are in the book. Like I had to reprogram my mind. Like, I'm like, I love writing. Writing loves me. The words flow through me. This is the most pleasurable experience. And like, I would like I was doing jumping jacks. Like it was like just strengthening my mind to have that experience. And it actually worked. And it was a birthing process. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my career and probably one of the things I'm most proud of as well. So yes, it is both.
I love that. And yeah, I'm right there in that process. And for years, I just put it off and put it off and put it off. And, I don't know what your terminology is or how you say this, but I'm like, it was an ache that wouldn't go away.
Mm.
I actually remember one time I was at this writing retreat because I was just so desperate to find that mentor that would help me.
Hmm.
And it took a few, I wouldn't say bad apples because it's just not bad apples, but I was coming from a place of desperation and not alignment when I was looking for a
Hmm.
mentor. And I was at this one writing retreat and I was so angry. And I said to a lady, "Oh yeah, this book just won't leave me alone." And she was like, "Oh, like, did someone make you get on the plane and come here?" And I was like, "No." "Why are you so angry at this book? It's just a book." And I was like, yeah, why am I angry? And so learning to change that energy and come from a lighter place, that's where we manifest. And so
Hmm.
let's talk about this. There's so many things I want to dive into in the book, but maybe a little backstory on, I know you've probably said this a million times, but kind of like what got you here to this point where you wanted to write, the audacity to be queen.
Oh, such a great question. Well, I think I'll share with you the tactical response and then we can do more the mission work journey. I, have been very blessed to have the career that I have, which was really out of design. I love luxury, I love travel, I love fashion, and I consciously went about creating the luxury brand of personal development. When I first started in the late 90s, like personal development, spiritual landscape, and then internet marketing was probably like the least sexiest industries out there in terms of an aesthetic. And, I never wanted to go to an event at an airport hotel, and I didn't want to show up at an event with a bunch of people and like wearing backpacks and sneakers. And nothing wrong with it. It's just not my flavor. And so I created the brand Divine Living, which is about having a meaningful career in a luxurious lifestyle, whatever that luxury is for someone. And really specialized in high-end programs. On average, my programs were anywhere between 10 grand and 100 grand. And I've really just been so blessed and had so much joy working in a really high-end capacity with high-end clients for almost the past 20 years now. And then something, I don't know if I'd say shifted, something opened where in my heart, I really wanted the message that I've been pouring into my clients over these past 2 decades to reach the masses. And I wanted there to be a $27 price point. And I wanted there to be something consumable like a book, because as great as these year-long high-end programs are, it's not the only. First of all, it's not for everybody, and secondly, I really wanted this message that all things are possible and that you can be the queen of your life. I want that for every woman, so that's why I wrote the book.
That's amazing. And tell me about the personal journey and how you became a queen, just driving around on a motorcycle doing interviews on the side of the road.
Yeah, to give some context, I am on a motorcycle trip with my husband. Well, we are in a hotel in Boise, Idaho at the moment. I
Are you the only
I'm
people there in the hotel?
no, surprisingly. I mean, that's everyone's like social distancing the whole thing, but no, there was like a line at check-in. It was funny.
Interesting.
Um, so my journey, I think, started out probably like every listener. Like I was a little girl with a big dream. I grew up in an ordinary home in the suburbs of Detroit. My parents were school teachers, so we weren't rich, we weren't poor, and but I just knew from a very young age that I wanted to live this big life. And I, started out like I talk about in the book and ballet classes and wearing sequins and bright colors. And then somewhere along the lines, everything got practical and expensive and had to save money and be reasonable. And go to college and get a job mentality started to settle in. And by the time I found myself going to state school in Michigan, I felt like I was living in the land of mediocrity. And I was like, what? Like, I'm now an adult. Like, I waited my whole life to become an adult where I would like live my big life. And now I'm like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was also, this was like the early 90s now. So like grunge had just come out, and it was like on top of things, it was like illegal to look like you had even put a brush through your hair in the last 3 weeks. I was like, this is not my idea of adulthood. I wanted to wear like Versace and stuff. And anyways, so I grew up in a Christian home. So I've always had a relationship with God. And then I found spirituality in my 20s, and started to like dream again and started to believe again. And so through career, I think mostly like started to explore like, how can I really make a difference? How can I live a big life? And then later on, how the question became like, how can people like us who want to have a meaningful career? Like I thought people who had money were like rock stars and professional athletes, and like it was okay for them. But how could like people like us in the helping healing professions move into a dream home or travel and wear fashionable clothing? So I just started asking those questions, and it led me from being the broke, struggling psychologist, a psychotherapist that I was, to life coaching, then success coaching and internet marketing, and to an industry that was still all about possibility, but also included unlimited financial abundance as well.
I love this. So there's so much in there that you said. First, we already had a
Yeah.
conversation that I live very close to Detroit. Did I tell you this?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. So I'm like, yes, I love it. It's like when people have grown up in proximity, you're like, it's possible for me too, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
But there's something that you mentioned, like you were talking about your story as a little girl where you had this big vision,
Mm-hmm.
and then, adulthood came in and kind of like, quote unquote, made you realistic and kind of dim that light down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to a point where you're like, no more. Like this ache or desire is still here. And, we're all looking for the purpose, the fulfillment, the contentment, the freedom. And you see it sold on the internet all the time. Like, find your purpose. And it's like, it's there. It's in you. It's always been there. Yes, as you grow up, it might be a little bit different, but the dream was there. So what was that for you to like step into, kind of unlearn and step back into that little girl and that big dream and make it happen?
So I am not an innovator. It's like, I'm not an inventor. I'm not someone who comes up with an idea. If I see it done, then I can go make it mine. And so I think that it didn't, until I saw spiritual leaders and people in the world of psychology and personal development combined with financial abundance and luxury lifestyles, I didn't know it was possible for me. And, when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, the camp was very separate. You either made money or you were spiritual. You either had a meaningful career or you were rich. And I never knew anybody who had both. And growing up in the Midwest, there were all these mentalities around people that were wealthy, that they just, they were just all about the money, and it was just all, it was never an integration. And then I think we saw Oprah, and then we saw Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson and Jean Houston. So we started to see these thought leaders, at least I did, who were having a very meaningful career, who were creating a great amount of impact, who were spiritual people, and they were wealthy. And then The Secret came out, and I think that was a real kind of like turning point for the masses to start to get. You can be spiritual and wealthy. You can have a meaningful career and be well compensated for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably all I needed to see. That was like, sign me up. It was like Tony Robbins was like, kind of the first really famous life coach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I was like, okay, I can do what I like to do, which is help people transform their lives, and I can make a lot of money. So that's when I was like, I'll take one of those careers, please.
Yes. I came from the social work background, which is very, I don't want to say lack mentality, but you are on the front lines and you're not well compensated for it. And there was always this desire for more, but it also came from like bigger impacts. Like there was a message here, and I could see working within the system I wasn't going to be able to like fulfill that in it. And there was a lot of shame that came with that. Like shame and guilt and self-judgment on how dare you want more. Now being on the other side of that, like all the more that I've been able to acquire and manifest, I'm able to make a bigger impact. I'm able to donate more money. I'm able to be more. And the interesting part is, and I've opened up your book and I'm on page 54, Restoring Your Feminine Power, which is a freaking foreign concept of this process. But first of all, when I started to restore my own power, I didn't understand patriarchy. I didn't understand feminine power. Like when I saw these things, I was like, what is that? It seems so foreign to me. The book, one of the first life coaches I had, she made me read the book, like Mama Gina, like the School of Womanly Art. And I was like, yes, like somebody giving me permission to feel good. Like someone saying, Heather, if you want to manifest, the whole point of life, regardless, motherhood, not motherhood, like whoever you are, your feminine power is your superpower, and taking that back. I said to you, I was going to read out of your own book. I don't know if that feels awkward. Does it feel awkward when people read your words back to you?
No. Well, first of all, I don't know that anyone ever has. I'm trying to think of anyone. Yeah. And second of all, I'm flattered. I'm like so curious to see what line you're going to pick.
I love it. I always hear Brene Brown do this to people when she's interviewing them. And
oh, wow.
It's funny how the conversations go, but I'm just like, yeah, like I want to know why you wrote this, what you wrote. So anyway, so you ready for the surprise?
Bring it.
Okay. Page 54, Restoring Your Feminine Power. A queen uses femininity like the incredible power it is. It gives you the ability to heal and transform old hurts and past wounds, as well as create your epic life. With your instincts intact, you'll hear what's really being said versus what is being spoken. And that last line, I was like, ooh. So tell me about that. What does that mean?
Well, so much of our lives, we have been conditioned, we're on autopilot, and we're also functioning from, particularly for women, oftentimes from the disease to please. So when someone says, how are you? And you say, fine, if they're like, if you have your feminine power intact, that anybody that answers and says fine is not fine, even though they said fine. So you can hear from a different place, and you can sense a different truth other than what's just linear and on the surface. And so whether it's with other people or even yourself, like if you're telling yourself like, I want to go like do this program because I saw someone else do the program, it's like, well, like, but wait, are you just being competitive? Is that really a desire? And you can start to hear from a different place. So I think that that's what I was referring to.
I love it.
That last part.
Yeah. And I also hear, sorry, I was going to say, I just get so excited about this conversation, but also hear from women, I'm fine. I'm good. I should be
Mm-hmm.
grateful. Like everything's
Mm-hmm.
good in my life. And you can almost hear the cutting off of the
Mm-hmm.
desire.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's conditioning. You know, we have been taught, particularly as women, to be happy for what we have, to that if we want more, that it's either being greedy or it's going to take a long time or it's going to be hard work or we're going to burn ourselves out. And, you know, we're not really hearing the truth that comes in the form of the whispers from spirit. And those whispers are all about what is possible and that our real desires, the reason why we constantly have more desires as women is because it's our feminine nature to grow. And growth requires more desires. It doesn't necessarily require, though it can, and I don't have any issue on any of it, materialistic desires. But we're to always be wanting something new, something more, says that you are alive and you have not let this status quo dull your senses so much to actually
Mm.
believe that you're fine, that you don't want more.
Why is it so rare? Like I'm getting to a point now in my life, and I'm curious if you have felt this in your career,
Mm-hmm.
but as you continue to embody, like practice what you preach and embody
Mm-hmm.
this, um, of course you have to like find your people, right? But I'm
Yep.
looking
Mm-hmm.
around and I'm like, man, there's so many people. I'm like, we got this. Like, it's okay. Like, yeah, the shit show is going to come up. You're going to feel the contrast. But being able to work through it and understand that, but being, I don't want to say on the other side, but really honoring and trusting the desire and continuously up leveling. Do you find it's lonely sometimes?
Never. Not with who I surround myself with these days. It's almost like who I surround myself with, they're such incredible, they're more women than men, but there's both. There's like, they inspire me to like keep going. Like, I'm like, geez, why didn't I think of that? Like, you know, so I'm around such an extraordinary group of women and couples that um, we're all, it's like, and I live in LA, so it's like sort of illegal to not be going for your best life.
Illegal.
So it's, and it's interesting. There was someone who kind of took a jab at me, a quote unquote friend, who kind of took a jab at me on Instagram in a private DM.
Mhm.
And it was such a foreign experience. Like, now, I have not always had this in my life. And I actually write about it in the book, Born to Belong, is the chapter where I have very consciously cultivated community, and deep friendship and relationship. So when this person took just this unnecessary jab, I was like it felt so icky, and it was like next to nothing. Like the Sicilian in me could have like totally jabbed back and been like
Mhm.
fine with it. But it's been so long since I was around anybody who was like passive aggressive and self righteous, and I was like, do I straight up go and unfollow this person? Or, and I chose to like take a moment and I muted them.
Mhm.
And I was like, I just don't have any of it in my life anymore. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I've been through so much dysfunction and addiction and toxicity in my own family. And then certainly I've had it with clients, I've had it with team members, like what quote unquote friendships. So I did not pop out of the box this way. I have certainly done my work on eradicating any form of negativity, toxicity, and just even like people that like don't have like interests. Like, it doesn't make anybody right or wrong, but I surround myself with people who are led up by entrepreneurship, travel, fashion, like fun, going out, femininity. So it's like it's this vortex of like, it's so extraordinary that and this whole group of us, like, we have just a zero tolerance policy for like anything that's not bliss.
I love that. So this is like a whole conversation around zero tolerance, right? Like
Mhm.
non-negotiables. And
Mhm.
every up level will bring new things in your life. But when people say, how do you stop something from that like happening? And I'm like, oh, I don't have, like, in some areas of my life, I just have a no tolerance for it. In other areas, I'm still seeking, right? Like still
Mhm.
looking for that. But I just don't allow it. It's like the
Mhm.
second you're feeling that energy come towards you, you're like, no, thank you. Mute,
Mhm.
unfollow,
Mhm.
delete,
Mhm.
like unsubscribe, right? And
Yep.
so this to me sounds like a conversation on manifestation. And I know before we hit record, we were talking about, you said, how woo woo can I get? How spiritual can I
Mhm.
get? And like when someone is on that path, a lot of the women listening to this will either be curious or they're starting or they're deeply engrossed in that, like trusting and manifesting. What is that for you? Like, what is that practice to realign with the energy you want to surround yourself with and realign the energy that you want to become? And
Mhm.
really just owning, that queen energy, like who you want to be. What practices do you have in life? How do you do that for yourself?
Sure. Well, one thing that I've had to do a lot of unpacking on is what is actually spiritual guidance? Because so much of what kept me codependent and in toxic dynamics were was my conditioning. Well, like, because like the old Gina would have been like either like just completely made myself collapsed into this other person's voice. I mean, like, oh well, he's right and I'm wrong and I shouldn't have done it that way. And um like so there's that ickiness. Then the other part of me would be like, well, he's had a really rough life and he comes from an abusive dynamic. I can see where the abuse would come from. Like I just need to be loving and I need to be a good friend, like really warping spiritual principle um in the like the do-gooder vibe, like being a good girl or what I thought was a good Christian or any of that stuff. And now I'm more in tune with, or I don't get it perfect, obviously, but like I'm more seek like, dear God, what would you have me do? Like, what really is the divine guidance here? And for me, in that moment, the divine guidance was, I don't desire to be have anything like this in my life.
Mm,
And it was interesting too because it can see, codependency is so manipulative actually. Like you think it's just about pleasing other people, but it's really like doing everything that you think someone else will like so that you can get something from them, whether it's approval, whether it's attention, whatever it is. And this person is really well resourced and really well connected. And the old Gina and me would have like hung on to that. Well, like, yeah, but what if I ever like need to, whatever, whatever. And it's sort of this a bit of a selling of the soul, or thinking that you need to be around this murkiness so that you can get something good in your life. And that's where I really no longer make other people God. I
oh, I
follow
love
spiritual
this.
guidance. Yeah. And source is source. And if I'm supposed to have some door open or some experience or some opportunity, then spirit can deliver it. And I am not going to play this game that like because I know what this person's, contact list is, that that's even gonna like it's just manipulative, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to be around this person, but I would have used to still staying around so I could get something. And that's not, no one wants that.
You
So
you said something about, I have no desire to be around people like that. Like,
mhm,
and when you said that, it was my desire is not there, right?
mhm,
To
mhm,
have those relationships. And it's it's a constant decluttering. Like I'm always telling people, you're managing these energies. Like it's not really
mhm,
people, it's these energies that they're embodying. And when you can say, like, I love and accept you for who you are, but you're not
mhm,
coming in my little bubble. And if that
mhm,
annoys you or triggers you, that's your shit to sit with, not mine to manage and baby and
mhm,
coddle.
mhm.
And
It.
Go ahead.
Like, there's just too many fabulous
I just
people
love
out
that.
there.
I know. I'm like, I love this conversation. I'm like, yes, go ahead.
Well, it's like, I just realized, like, if that's underneath it, like, this particular dynamic was so, like, came out of left field and and believe me, I'm not a one strike policy person, like, if this was like a deeper friendship and something went down, I'm all about confrontation, in a loving, like, hey, this didn't feel good, and why did you say this? But this just wasn't this particular, like, this, there isn't that level of depth in this acquaintance, so to speak. So it was just like, nope. And two of my favorite words are becoming unavailable, because I believe you're defined as much by what you say no to as what you say yes to. And it really is a choice, but women have to give themselves permission to, like, let it all be good. Like, let it all be good. You don't have to, like, have mostly great team members and a couple of gnarly ones, or mostly great clients and a couple of gnarly ones.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let it all be good, because, okay, here's my personal experience. And actually, I just got off of a client call right before this, and she said, I don't have anything bad to talk about. And I was like, why? Why does it have to be bad? Why can't it be like this or something better? Right? Like, why do we wait for the pain and go, help me, I'm drowning? I'm like, no, it's working. You've up leveled. I'm like, this or something better. And you don't have to be hustling to want, you could be, in a state. She's like, I feel like I'm in the state where I need to, just enjoy the gratitude and enjoy everything that I've manifested. I said, yeah, you don't need to move forward if the pull is not there right now, right? If you're in a season of just savor, we don't do that. But I see too often where people are like, I feel good and I'm sabotaging the good feelings, or yes, everything is good and there's just this one huge energy leak in my life. And it's like, well, let's look at that. Why can't you? What do you say to that?
I mean, it's, the audacity to be queen is about having and experiencing it all. And, it's, that message is aligned with spiritual principle. There's so many women that say, like, you can have love or you can have money, but you can't have them both at the same time. And it's like, where is that in scripture? Like, this is, like, not true. So I think that I do believe there's different seasons in life. Absolutely. Where we may be more focused on health or on healing or on money making or whatever it is. But ultimately it's about getting great at receiving. And that's what the feminine is. Like, ultimately femininity is about receiving and masculinity is about giving. And too many women are stuck in an over masculine. They're over giving to their children, to their partners, to their jobs, whatever it is. Because I can tell you, anything that is not functioning at the level that you desire in your life all comes down to your inability to receive.
Yeah.
And I write about in the book, it's called The Injured Feminine Instinct. And when you start to heal those pieces, you'll start to see how great you get at receiving all the desires of your heart.
Yes. Oh man, I know that all too well. Yeah. Learning to receive, and yeah, it's part of the flow, right? You have to giving and receiving. And when you're giving more and you're not receiving, that's called debt or a deficit. It's called lack. Just sitting back and saying,
of time.
Yeah. And you can see it on a very practical scale. Gina, I feel like we could talk forever and ever.
Agreed.
But I want you to get back on your motorcycle or wherever you are. And there were so many areas of this book that I was like highlighting and say, yes. Yeah, we could just talk about this forever. So why don't you tell people where they can get the book, what else you have, accompanying the book, so they can dive in and where they can find more of you.
Totally. Thank you for this, Heather. If you are liking this conversation, come on over to divineliving.com. It's DIVINE, divineliving.com/book. You can check the book out on hardback cover, Kindle, or audio. And you can also come to divineliving.com/audacity. This is my free companion course for the book. You don't even have to buy the book to get in on this. There's videos, there's workbooks, there's all kinds of support about you being queen in your life. There's a Facebook group. I do a live call periodically. So it's just a really thriving group of women from all over the world who are totally going for it in their lives. Like they want to be around high vibrational people that they might not be surrounded by them in real life, but they're definitely surrounded by them in this group. So come on over and check it out. divineliving.com/audacity.
I love that. And I want to ask you this question because I've been really thinking about this lately. Why is now in 2020, with everything that is going on in the world, with the injustice, which has always been there, but it's more in our faces, COVID, pandemic, why is now so important, such an amazing time to step into this and not hold back anymore?
Well, what the world is screaming and begging for is feminine leadership. And, and that's not necessarily about being female. There's masculine and feminine energy within both men and women. But the patriarchy, the masculine, the addiction to the masculine model, it is not working. It didn't work. And it is the earth, the justice system, the economy, the health has been screaming for a higher consciousness, and that is where feminine leadership comes in. Feminine leadership consults spirit and God for spiritual direction as part of leadership. It's about seeing things not as they are, but as they could be, and not the way it's always been done. It doesn't only trust in the concrete and the logical and the linear and the tangible. The feminine is about we, the masculine is about I. So really taking in the collective community as being more important than just the bottom line. So there's all kinds of ways, whether you are leading your household, a company, a nation, this world is craving feminine leadership, which is what queenhood is really about. And then I'll close with, the archetype of queen, she's not all feminine, by the way. She is actually the masterful blend of the feminine and the masculine. So it's like, this is another reason why I love her, is because she embraces all parts of ourselves. We have the feminine and the masculine within inside of each of us. But if we don't default to always starting with the masculine and always being in our masculine, we start with the feminine, we bring in the empowered masculine as is appropriate. This world will restore its balance of having people thrive versus just survive.
I love this. And I think I'm living proof of this. And I feel like I'm also in the infancy stage, meaning you can tell that there's just more and more and more, right? Next level queen, next level stepping into that. And, it can feel vulnerable to step into feeling good and to balance those parts of yourself, the get shit done and the let it go, surrender, trust. And I just want to say thank you for writing this book and and going through the hell and birthing this baby and creating the community and being you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I received that, Heather. That feels really wonderful. And you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Gina, for being here. And all of those links will be in the show notes. And I look forward to, all the women connecting and becoming their queen.
Thank you, Heather. It's been so great being here.